Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Mass Effect Andromeda. I played it on the Xbox One, it's also available on the PS4 and PC. So Mass Effect Andromeda takes place in the Mass Effect universe and like 600 years later, so way down the line, because, well, you and the rest of the crew of the Ark, there are individual arcs for the other races from the Milky Way galaxy as well, but you start on the human arc because, well, Mass Effect at the end of the day has always been about the humans and, well, their interaction with the other alien species. You've been sent to the Andromeda galaxy to find a new home for humanity. But unfortunately, the second you arrive, you run into this giant dark matter cloud called the Scourge, and it fucks up your ship. And then you go to the first habitable planet, and turns out, well, it's not habitable, and there's another alien race there, and they're a bunch of assholes. They're definitely not cool, and, well, that's when you really start playing the game, but it gets even more intense from there, because you play as one of the Ryder twins, as we all know, and quickly after arriving on that first planet, your father, the Pathfinder, is killed. Just like any other Mass Effect game, you get a cast of characters, you get your own ship, and you get to interact with them, and I really love the interactions in this game. When you're riding around, your characters will talk to you or each other. When you're just on the ship, it seems like I always walk into these really interesting conversations that the crew is having. Back to the main story, the aliens that you run into are known as the Ket, and you find out that they're causing problems all across the Andromeda galaxy. But as the Pathfinder, your real main goal is to make a home for the humans, the Turians, and the Asari. And that is what you are doing throughout the game. Mind you, there's a lot of complications along the way. So when it comes to the audio in this game, I actually enjoy it. I like the music. I wish there was a bit more ambient music, but there is a good amount of sound just everywhere. Each of the worlds has their own unique ecosystem, so therefore their own unique sounds. The weapons sound very futuristic, which you would expect, but it is a satisfying sound when you hear and fire the weapons. The voiceover, there is a ton of voiceover in this game, just an insane amount, honestly. All the characters have their own things to say, their own things to add, and they have a ton of voiceover lines just for minor characters even. I think the voiceover work is done very well in this game. I didn't have any complaints. I didn't really run into any moments where I was like, oh geez, that was a really poorly delivered line. Ugh. So as for the gameplay and whatnot, it's very standard Mass Effect in a lot of ways. So the dialogue wheel is back, obviously, for guiding conversations, but it's very different in Andromeda than it was in the previous games. In the previous games, it was like Renegade or Paragon. In this, you're not Renegade or Paragon, you're just kind of a dick or a nice guy. That's not really accurate. It's like analytical, emotional response, curious response, etc., etc. So there's a lot of exploration in this game, that's a huge part of it. And it's kind of a combination of what was in Mass Effect 1 and 2. You can kind of scan planets, but you're not scanning every single planet for stuff to mine. And there's a lot of driving around for exploration and mining there. So it's kind of a combination of those two. When your boot's on the ground, it's a lot of third-person action. It's really heavy on the shooting. I mean, that's kind of where Mass Effect has moved to. But I've got to say, I wasn't loving it as much. For some reason, it felt like I was almost constantly getting into a firefight. There are, of course, RPG elements, and you can really do it however you want in this game because of certain things that are story-related that I won't get into. You can be biotic, you can be like the Saboteur, or you can be a commando. That's up to you. It's how you want to spend your points, and you can play that way. I personally play as like a hybrid of all three. I use a bit of each of their powers. As for the gameplay, I would say that's the weakest part of this game. I mentioned you can drive around, and you can, except for the driving controls aren't amazing. They're not the worst, but they're also not fantastic. When your boot's on the ground and in a firefight, that is kind of awful. Kind of awful, yeah. The camera doesn't really work with you in those situations, and, well, the movement system isn't fantastic. It feels really sloppy, but nowhere near as sloppy as the aiming controls. Those are garbage, just garbage. And I mean, eventually you adapt to them, but I don't like to have to adapt to them. I like to be able to pick up and just be like, Bam! Unfortunately, not so much here. When it comes to the graphics, that's also kind of a disappointing subject for this game because, well, it's not a huge leap. There's not a ton more detail in this game than there was in previous games. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed by the graphics because I was expecting this to look just stunning. And it really doesn't. While I didn't run into any of those graphical glitches with like the weird facial expressions that I've seen online, I did run into a couple of weird points, like when all my colors got completely fucked. Like they were just oddly bright, like everything turned into like a fucking neon color. It was, ugh. Going through one of the loading screens finally fixed it, but like everything else I did to try and fix it did not work. Then there was this cutscene where, I don't know what happened. Like parts of the cutscene, like certain objects in the cutscene were moving at like 2 frames per second, where some were like continually running and others were running smoothly. It was not cool, man. I don't really know where to put it, but I definitely have gotten hung up on objects in the game where I'm trying to move forward and my character just can't for whatever reason. Like there's no visible thing blocking me and yet my character cannot move forward. And the nav points in this game suck. You have a little compass at the top of your UI, just like a lot of other games at this point, but in this game they're kind of awful because they'll take you on weird routes that make no sense. And they don't do a good job of like telling you if it's upstairs or downstairs until you've reached a certain point and then you're like, oh wait, it's on the floor above me? Okay, I guess. Or they just fail to lead you out of like a building you're in. It's kind of shit. Fortunately, in a lot of those situations where the nav point was failing me, I could use the fast travel system and get somewhere else and then figure out where I actually need to go, but the nav system sucks a dick. I was curious because I heard a lot about how Mass Effect is getting like pretty poor reviews, and I checked the Metacritic. It's at like a 70% or whatever. 71 when I looked, I want to say, which that's not terrible. But the user scores were like abysmal, and some of them were shit. Like, I'll admit, some of these reviews were a fucking joke and like ignorant as fuck. And when I was looking, it was at like a 4.6 or something like that, and I gotta say, that's a bit low in my opinion. That having been said, I'm not gonna recommend buying Mass Effect. I don't think it would kill you to skip it. Like, if you're a hardcore Mass Effect fan, then me saying skip it's not gonna matter to you. More than likely, you're gonna pick it up anyways. You probably already have. But honestly, the gameplay's not that fantastic. The controls aren't amazing. There's not a lot that's really new to this game, and I would say graphics aren't the most important, but after 10 years I would expect it to look considerably better than the original, and it really doesn't. Honestly, we're in a year where there's a ton of great games coming out. There's already been quite a few open world games that are fantastic, and Mass Effect just doesn't live up to its pedigree. Honestly, it wouldn't kill you if you skipped it. Okay, so in the comments below, why don't you let me know who your favorite Mass Effect character is? And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share, subscribe. Have a good one.